what would the better version of Mycal do?
The only way you can rise really, really, really far is experience.
Most people are in a valley and don't even realize that they're there.
You might have to put the resources somewhere unfamiliar, AKA make a new choice. And that gets wildly uncomfortable because you're now saying no to the fun to say yes to the future.
Did I choose to do something different than I normally would have done? And is that decision, regardless of the outcome, is the decision in alignment with who I'm becoming?
What's up and welcome back to the Get Out of Your Own Way show. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest and new friend. His name is Mycal Anders. Now, let me tell you a little bit about him. Before I even get to his bio, I just want to tell you, we've had two conversations really, one via text and one in person prior to this interview. And you get to tell a lot about a person really fast when they're open and they share and they relate to your experiences. And we've had these deep dialogues. We became fast friends thanks to an old Baltimore connection, now being based here in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's really special. This conversation, though, is important to you if you have a hard time with your non-negotiables. If you find that mediocrity is not something you want, but you keep negotiating with yourself, this will be a powerful conversation with you. We also talk about the woes and the challenges that come with credentialism, trying to find all these stamps that say you're good enough. And if you need space in between your default choices and the best version of you, those choices, this conversation is going to light you on fire. Let me give you a little bit of detail about Mycal. Mycal is so many things, but he is most notably the founder of Next Level Performance Consulting with over 4,000 men and women coached since 2011 when he opened. He's a performance consultant, a Marine Corps veteran, so you know there's some strength there, a husband and a father of two. Now, his vision, which I really love this, in a world where leaders show up as the best version of themselves, like that is a great vision, living in abundance and fulfillment. What a great testimony to what he is, who he is, and why he's here on this show. He's the founder of Next Level. He's a coach and motivational speaker. And his mantra is progress always. You can check out his podcast called Progress Always. The journey is always ongoing, and the greatest stories are told through the process that is life. This is a never-ending journey. What a great way to sum who he is and what you're going to get out of this podcast. We're talking about a journey here. Let's roll on this together. Welcome to the show, Mycal Anders. All right, we made it. We're here. We did it. Mycal, it's Monday morning. It's about 10:30 when we're recording. We're both here in Scottsdale. You probably, like me, have been racing for the last 5 hours, if not more. How is Monday going, and what's your Monday look like typically?
So as of late, I have been committed to an ice bath first thing in the morning. Nice. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Get cold, get wet, and just start my day with some intentional breath work and just thinking time, right? Some introspection, reflection, and most importantly, it's my active practice of gratitude.
I love that.
And it's been really good for me. It's something, the gratitude part of it all is something that has ebbed and flowed in my life. But just like it's about as consistent as fitness is for me these days, where if I don't do it first thing in the morning, at some time in the day, we're going to make it happen.
Nice.
And then I have my cup of coffee. I either read, journal, or get straight to work. Just really depends on what the day requires right off the bat. And then I'm with my first client at 5:30. Then I train, hit our sauna, and then I'm typically done with my day's obligations, the have tos before 10 a.m. And then everything beyond that are the things that I want to do, or they're not on that list of non-negotiables. So whether that's outreach for the company or the people client prospecting, the things that don't require a ton of bandwidth, so to speak, because I've already won the day. So everything that happens after that is bonus.
Nicely said, man. I love the idea of winning the day. I recently bought a sauna and cold plunge. So that's coming. That's going to be part of my routine. I think the old version of me wanted these like fast Mondays. I wanted to come out of the gate running, and I wanted to sprint my way through Monday. And lately I've been in a slow Monday mentality where I give myself space to do these things. And one of the challenges that I've noticed in the space of going from speed to slow is that we're looking for the opportunity to say, well, as soon as there is space, as soon as there is time, as soon as there is a slowdown, then I'll install a morning routine. And you and I both know that's bullshit. It doesn't work that way. So what were some of the things that switched for you so that you could start prioritizing and blocking, almost like a block and tackle, to make space for your morning routine versus just wait for the right time? I put that in air quotes because there is no.
Yeah. Well, that's just it, man. It's blocking the time, because if you're performing above average in any category of your life, chances are you're never not going to be busy.
Right.
So, if you're allergic to mediocrity, chances are your day is booked from beginning to end. I don't care if you start at 9 a.m. and go till midnight, or start at 4 and go till 4. It doesn't matter. So the instrument that was most impactful in terms of making sure that Mycal takes care of Mycal, so that then I can then go forth and pour from a full cup, is I knew that, one, I need to make time for me and make myself a priority. And two, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Like I've already filled those blocks, and I've already created the excuses. So I had to jump ahead in time, and I leveraged the shit out of my Google Calendar, and I make appointments with me in the same way that I would, this appointment, this podcast held space on my calendar. Then it gets added to that non-negotiable list, right? Now I'm on my non-negotiable list. And I think that's where most people mess it up, is they treat themselves as like everything's negotiable, but I wouldn't miss this podcast,
Yeah, there's like a promise.
Why would I neglect my own self-care? The things that we talk about at Next Level, to be successful, and we do everything from a standpoint of principle, right? And you can apply these tenets to any facet of your life, and that's keep your promises, do hard things, make yourself proud, lather, rinse, and repeat. And it becomes this feedback, this positive feedback loop over and over and over again, where the willingness to do challenging things and hold yourself accountable to that intentional adversity it doesn't become easier. You're just more willing to go get in there and make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that stood out to me, you said two things. If you're allergic to mediocrity, which I love, because mediocrity drives me insane, and I'm on my non-negotiable list. So those two principles are really interesting to put together, that we want to be resistant to mediocrity and we want to prioritize ourselves. How do you help someone that wants to reach the next level, but in their pursuit of that is self-sacrificing? They're in this pattern where they're consistently trying to stretch, but they see stretching as do more, let go of all the things that are important to me, let go of what I value, let go of my health, let go of my fitness. Like, how do you help them put those ideas together in a homogenous way?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I actually just led a workshop at our Leaders Forum. And for those of you not familiar with Next Level, we have really dialed into fitness, healing, and mindset. And the Leaders Forum is the mindset end of what we do. And I just led a workshop on imprinted moments. You and I had that conversation that really set the tone for the work that we did this past week in the Leaders Forum. And I left them with this thought. And I think this really dials it in terms of, to answer your question really simply and really directly, that which is required cannot be inconvenient. And everything that we're talking about right now, that's the reframe. If you want to, I love the name of this podcast. You want to get out of your own way. You gotta reframe the shit that's required for you to step into your greatness to achieve that next level. You have to reframe what's required to do that as something that's not inconvenient because it's required. Michael Phelps didn't bitch, moan, and complain about getting in the pool because it was required. Like Hall of Fame athletes aren't wishy-washy about going to practice because it's required. Are the sacrifices need to be made? Yes. Are you going to miss, for everything that you say yes to, that means you got to say no to something else. Yep. Like, okay, that's consistent and that's congruent and it's also necessary. Does it suck? Yes. Is it required? Yes. And by virtue of its requirement, it is no longer inconvenient.
I can remember showing up at practice as a young person in pursuit of this craft and feeling like the work was just a part of the process, right? That the way forward is through almost the mundane. Like, can you master something over and over and over? And I can remember the conversation amongst peers. And I think this is true at almost all levels, which is where I want to go, talking about like next level and how that looks, where everyone wants to do the fancy stuff. And I love this idea of requirement because it also bakes down to the fundamentals if you haven't mastered these basic fundamentals. And when I look back I've been coaching now for almost 15 years. And in some capacity, the fundamentals of coaching in athletics, which you and I share a lot in common through our athletic journey, also mirror the fundamentals in business. Can you make these simple things happen on a repetitive basis and get consistent results? When you're working with athletes or with individuals who really want to prioritize fitness and you're starting to stretch them towards mindset, how do you help them connect the dots if they've never experienced any kind of mindset work? Like, how do you show them that the mindset piece is so important? Because that is really the biggest opportunity for change, in my opinion.
Sure. So that's such a great question. So we leverage fitness, your physical practice, to really create an opportunity to bridge that gap, because there's going to come a point in your journey, whether it's that moment where you have to go and you don't want to, and you have to make a choice. You have to overcome how you feel with what's required, right? That's one. There's going to come a time when you've got to set a 10 and you want to quit at 8. There's going to come a time where you want to, you have one more exercise on the schedule and you want to pack it up and leave early. Like all of those things are going to happen. There's going to come a point where you want to go out to eat instead of heading home and eating what you got in the fridge. Like you're going to have to overcome all those things within yourself at some point. And people at a very surface level are proud of themselves for simply committing to their fitness in that regard.
Nice.
When what you've really done is started to rewire how you process and value yourself and integrate your new list of non-negotiables, because now it becomes part of who you are. It's just what you do. And at a certain point, we can now say, okay, yes, we can bundle all that up under the umbrella of fitness. And also, if you can do that, you can do this.
Nice.
And oh, by the way, if that concept is still a bridge too far, as far as the mindset is concerned, you've already done it. So now you don't have any excuse to not do it.
That's right. Yeah, I hear in that so many important principles. I think an interesting through line is this idea of non-negotiables. We just held a VIP retreat 2 weekends ago called The Next Level. And what I'm hearing in the way that you think about the next level, it's your non-negotiables. I think the word that we might use is standard, but in the way that you describe this, all growth is happening through these non-negotiables. When you draw the line to the mindset, if you can get through and push past your limit in the physical space, then you can push past your limit in the mental space. How do you help someone understand what their current non-negotiables are? Because there's an awareness of things that might be moving targets, right? When I think of a non-negotiable that is me today, I look back at former Aaron and I'm like, he would never have said that's a non-negotiable. He didn't even know that he was negotiating on that, but he was negotiating on that every day. I was negotiating on the price of coaching. I was negotiating on the standards of the people I hung around. I was negotiating on what I was eating. And as you change, you almost have to have an awareness to what are my standards? What are my current non-negotiables? Where does someone start to see what their non-negotiables are?
So part of what we do is we assess how people show up at their best and the triggers that send them into their stress. Because when things only become negotiable when shit's not going well. Like think about that really quick. When everything's going right and you're in flow and you don't have a care in the world and you got all the money in the bank and you have the least amount of friction possible, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
That's right.
Right. And all of a sudden, nothing is challenging. You don't have to go out of your way to make anything happen. Right. Introduce just the teensiest bit of friction. Your kids get sick. You have a fight with your significant other. Your business partner's a pain in the ass. Your clients no-show you. Whatever. God forbid you're irresponsible and you run out of gas. I don't know. Flat tire. Now it's like, well, I guess I'm not going to, you start to just take shit off the list.
Nice.
Right?
This is so good.
But if it truly is non-negotiable, you will figure out a way, like all of those things create opportunities elsewhere in the day. Right. And so when we take somebody through their stress assessment in our onboarding process, we identify where those triggers are. One, for their own self-awareness. Two, so they're granting us permission to hold them accountable. And three, and the most important part is creating an immediate action plan for not if, but when that stress shows up. You now have a gap that's big enough so that you're able to choose a different and better behavior that's in alignment with your highest and best self.
So good.
And, so now when you're looking at the fitness equation, which is hyper tangible,
yep.
Right? I want to drop some lbs. I want to look better in my clothes. I want to lift more weight, whatever, that segues into the healing because that has to take place to maximize the fitness part. Right. And in that healing, for a lot of movers and shakers, just the simple act of sitting still is the hardest part of their day. And in that, now we get to really strategically practice this mindset thing.
Dude, this is so good. This is so important. And if you're listening right now and you find yourself flexing on things that are important to you, I want you to pay very close attention for the next 10 minutes because it's about to get real. And I know Mycal has a lot on this to share. So the wisdom here, Mycal, I love this. Things only become negotiable when things aren't going well. So it is in that point of friction. I love that. And you mentioned that if you have an immediate action plan, then you can widen the gap to make a new choice. I was on the highway yesterday and there's a section coming east where the road splits into like 1,000 different places. And my GPS can't react fast enough for me to track it. So I end up on a different road. And the immediate response when I get on this other road is to look over to the right at the road that I'm quote unquote supposed to be on, which would be my default, and to say something like, I missed my exit or I missed my turn. Now I'm on a new road. And there's almost a friction in choosing a new road as well. Even though we think there's going to be some kind of resistance to choosing a new road. Now, that example is usually what happens when we're so accustomed to a behavior and something new gets introduced, right? Oh, I missed it. It almost feels weird to make a choice that's different. But the gap to me is where the magic happens. It's where someone has a default behavior, an old way home, an old road that they know, like, I know exactly where I'm going. And all of a sudden you make a detour. Like guys like us help people make a detour. How can we stretch the gap though? Because we have to have the awareness to make a choice, and we have to have the awareness to make a new choice and not the default behavior, the default option. How do we expand that gap?
Great question. And I'm going to answer it with a question because the answer is a question. And when you come up on that, once we have identified that this is the trigger for this particular behavioral response, how we create the gap is very simply conscious of said trigger. We now get to ask ourselves a question. What would the better version of Mycal do? What is the decision at this fork in the road that is in best aligns with who I'm becoming?
Love that.
And in the answering that question, your old behavior, which we've identified does not serve you, becomes it's a non-option.
That's right. We draw the line.
Because now you're having a positive negotiation with yourself. Because if I choose to do the old thing, I'm not making any progress.
Nice.
And if I choose to do the new thing, chances are it's hard just to make that decision, right? So I made a promise. I'm doing a hard thing. And on the other side of that hard, I'm making myself proud. So the next time it happens, it'll be that much easier to go right instead of left, right? And now I'm creating a new feedback loop.
So good.
It's what we call in my minor in psychology from undergrad a pattern interrupt. You have to disrupt the pattern.
That's right.
To give yourself the space to just sit with where you're at and make that different decision.
So good, man. It's an understated truth, but this idea of widening the gap is so good. And I love that the metric that we're using here is not about the results of the action, right? The outcome being, did I make myself proud, is so much better than did this action work? Because it's implied, and I think anyone listening would agree that if you're taking some action that's very different from what you've done, it's pretty likely at the onset of that, it's going to fail. It's going to be awkward. You're going to stumble. You're not going to do it correctly. But this metric that you have of, if I choose the old thing, I'm not making progress, but the new thing, even if it's hard, can make me proud. That is so significant. And what speaks to me most about being proud is who we are proud of. And I feel like some of the biggest changes in my life have happened because initially I wanted someone else to be proud of me. And I really wanted that. Like I sought after that. Whereas now there's a space in my life for me to be proud of me. Even if things go horribly and horrific wrong, I can be proud of why I made the choice in the first place. Is that something?
Well, that's the thing. So it's not the act, right? I want to make sure that we're using very specific and intentional language here. The act, the thing that you're doing, isn't the hard part. And I love you're breaking up with your old self. And if we can liken this to the bullets we've dodged in the past that were previous relationships, right? We knew that we shouldn't have been in that relationship long before we actually broke up. Like if you go all the way back and you look at all the relationships that didn't make it to today,
Yep.
right? You knew that person wasn't for you way before you actually sacked up and broke up. Or, in a less mature version of yourself, you created a really awful, toxic situation that forced the relationship to decay, right? These are all the self-sabotaging things that we do in an attempt to make things easier, and all we're doing is making it really fucking hard, right? So it's not the act, it's the decision that you're proud of. Because to your point, it's not about the result, right? Did I choose to do something different than I normally would have done, right? And is that decision, regardless of the outcome, is the decision in alignment with who I'm becoming?
Nice.
Because even if the outcome doesn't go your way, well, now you have an opportunity to make a different decision.
Yes.
Right. And that's all we're doing as we evolve, because as we transcend and include ourselves, we're going to take the things that have worked and we're going to get rid of the things that don't. And that, what we keep and what we throw away, changes as we evolve. So it's not about the result. It's about just making the decision. That, if we're going to boil it down to an action, it's the making of the decision. It's not the thing that I'm going to do.
So good.
If that makes any sense.
So good. Yeah. And I'm reading between the lines here to hear that really the next level of us just makes different choices. That's the difference between us now and us in the future, or us in our best, is that we just make different choices. So what we're guiding someone towards is there's an opportunity for you to get better at making choices. And ultimately, the outcome of the choice is not what we're centralizing on. We're focused almost entirely on the choice. Can you just make a different choice?
Right. Because you do have to take into account the circumstances you're in. Right. So let's go back to fitness. If I'm at a point in my life, I'm fresh out of school, I'm on my own for the first time. I don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, but I know that I need to work out. But it's pay rent or we'll go get a gym membership. Well, it looks like I'm just doing burpees, push-ups, and air squats for a good little while until I get my feet under me.
Yep.
Then once my circumstances change and I can't afford that gym membership or trainer or life coach or whatever, as we evolve and we have the resources for other and better opportunities, well, then we're making a different set of choices are available to us, even though they're still in alignment with who we are.
Yeah. I think the circumstance piece is important. The reality for many, and even for you listening, may be that you don't have the resources you want to make the investment in the things that you want. Or I think that it's worth saying this, you may not want to put the resources that you have into the thing that you want. And I get the fear there. I think that's a very normal and rational experience when you are on a growth curve. You may be used to putting $800 a month towards your fun, your adventure, your experiences. And for you to build the business, for you to grow what you want to grow, for you to learn how to take your craft and make it an income generating thing, you might have to put the resources somewhere unfamiliar, AKA make a new choice. And that gets wildly uncomfortable because you're now saying no to the fun to say yes to the future. And that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But that's the choice. Those are the kinds of choices that we're talking about here.
Right. 100%.
When I think of your history, so you've gone from Marines and then into training and now into mindset, the entire spectrum you've really gotten to walk. And the athletic journey also requires, especially as a trainer, a lot of credentials or can. I'd love to know your thought on this. I have like zero credentials. I just have a lot of experience. And I think there's an over emphasis on credentialism, getting your letters, getting your stamps, getting your certs, all those things.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're necessary, sometimes they're not. But how do you help someone that wants to grow that's the only way they see forward?
That's so funny, man, because you're talking to a credential chaser. And at the same time, I've got 2.5 master's degrees. I'm a Berkman certified consultant, certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA. I wanted as many fucking letters behind my name as I could get, right? Captain, United States Marine Corps, blah, 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 blah. My credibility from a credential standpoint is beyond reproach. And even still, we have to acknowledge that there is a special intersection where education and experience come together. There are things that I learned in the classroom that made the practical application of my life as an athlete and a coach make more sense. And at the same time, there were things that I was doing as an athlete and a coach that were way ahead of the curve as far as what I was looking at in strength and conditioning research, that are just, quite simply, becoming mainstream now. Knees over toes. Like, that was like, don't fucking do that. That's horrible. Don't squat full depth, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, some dude just documents his own experience. And he's like, look at all these anatomical positions of athleticism. There is not a one where your knees are not over your toes. And all of a sudden, now research has to be like, well, maybe that's not so bad, and what will, so we're constantly moving back and forth in this space of influence where, yes, the education is important. The credentials are important. All the credentials do is validate some kind of curriculum that you've completed. And still, we have to look inside of our own practice with how the work that we're doing on ourselves and the work that we're doing with our clients to establish what are best practices, because not all of that stuff applies to everybody all the time. And that's where the nuance comes in. And that's whether you're coming at it from an experiential standpoint or from an educational standpoint, that's the nuance that separates the pros from the Joes. And if you don't ultimately, whether it's experience or education, or you're in that sweet spot intersection, you have to understand the principles of what the fuck you're talking about. Because if you don't understand the principles of, fitness, healing, and mindset, and, none of those three things are applied to any two clients in universal application.
Yep.
You can't, so if you don't understand the principles of those things, well, then you can't get in, which are inarguable, by the way, where we get into pissing matches and these online debates with keyboard superheroes is in methodology.
Yes.
My protocol is better than your protocol or whatever. And it's just like, well, how are you applying that protocol? What are the principles that it's based under?
Yeah.
Because, you cannot move away from principle. It's impossible.
So what I hear is that, with this intersection of education and experience, there's a lot of value in the education. And I'm a believer in education. It has been my path, my history, and certainly my circumstance. That's very different, though, than the certs. What if someone is objectively looking at their future and they say, I need a cert?
Yep.
How do you look back on your history and help them figure out how to get out of their own way? Is it the chase of the cert? Is it the chase of the education? What is it that they should be looking for so that they can make a new choice?
Oh, okay. Got it. Now I understand your question. I'm sorry. What is the itch that cert scratches?
Nice.
Seriously, is it, like for me in the world of strength and conditioning, once upon a time, that CSCS unlocks all the doors. it had nothing to do with whether or not it was going to make me a better subject matter expert, which it totally did. But looking at it beyond the certification and the opportunities that were available with it versus without it, it was a no-brainer, right? That CSCS credential does way more for me in my field than a master's degree in fitness and conditioning. So understanding,
and that's because it's practical.
Yeah. So it really comes down to the intent. What do you want? What do you want from that?
Nice.
You know, is that a better answer?
Yeah. And this is just a great place to explore, because I think in every profession it's different, right? And it's always, it intrigues me, because to me, the next level, the only way you can rise really, really, really far is experience. I think that's well documented. But it is interesting to me how individuals go about finding certs. And sometimes I see individuals with a lot of experience. This might be you listening. You have a lot of experience and you almost go backwards to get a cert because we want the credibility that comes with it. We may not feel confident in our proclamation, in our knowledge, in our experience enough to say, hey, I don't need that. And then other times, as a starting point, that can really rocket ship you if you're at baseline and you're trying to jump up and get to a place where you can get operational with something. I do think there's merit.
Yeah.
Me being a non-cert kind of oriented person, it's not to discount certification. I actually think that education is incredibly important, but I do recognize that you can build a business if you have experience without the certs. It's a fascinating space to me.
Yeah. So I'll show you where it backfires, because that was my initial experience coming out of college. You know, my bachelor's degree is in health and human performance. And upon leaving college, I was, my first gig with Gold's Gym. I came in right at the New Year's rush, you know, like, hey, we have, you know, all these client orientations, you know, we'll get your book full, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, cool. Fill me up. Let's rock. And I will never forget this. It was a rainy day in January 2007 at Gold's, the after work rush. And this woman comes in, freezing rain, layered up, and sit down for her initial consult, walk her through the gym, the whole thing. You know, what are your goals? Tell me this, tell me that, you know, what's your experience? And then we get back to the office and sit down, and I'm like, okay, so, you know, let's get to the why of it all. Why are we here? What is it that you really want to accomplish? I understand that you want to lose weight. And, you know, she's like, well, and, you know, in the last year, I've lost 100 pounds. I'm like, amazing. Good for you. Right. That's awesome. And I'm like, okay, so where do we go from here? She's like, well, I really want to get rid of this loose skin. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I lost all that weight, and now I just have the skin left over that I'd like to tighten up and get rid of. I was like, okay. I didn't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know that. I didn't know to ask how she lost the weight. She was a gastric bypass lap band client. I can't remember which of the two. And, you know, so when you lose that kind of weight that fast, the skin doesn't have enough, you're not losing it slow enough for your skin's elasticity to keep up with the change. Right. So I'm just sitting there kind of confused, and I'm asking a lot of like roundabout questions, trying to get to a point where like, I really understand what the hell she's talking about. And I was like, you know what, can you just show me? So, you know, scarf comes off, jacket comes off, sweater comes off, and she looked fine. And then she went like this. I know you can't see me spreading my arms, but then skin just drooped off of her triceps. And I was like, I'll be right back. I left the office. I went and got my manager. I was like, hey, I don't know what to do here. Like, this is so outside my scope, and they didn't teach me anything about this shit in school. Right. And like that was a moment where experience trumps education, because I had a gap in knowledge.
That's right.
And, in maintaining my integrity as a trainer and a coach, I didn't take her as a client. I had to refer her out to a cosmetic surgeon because she was so far gone that the next step is you have to have a procedure to get rid of that skin.
Man.
But I didn't know what I didn't know.
That's right. Sounds like it taught a good lesson. I also can appreciate that you had to go ask for help and you were willing to do that. There's a big challenge for high performers not asking for help. Hands down. It is one of the most prolific problems that I see over and over is the unwillingness to raise your hand and say, I can't do this alone, or I don't want to do this alone. I need help, or I want help.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the worst thing I could have done for that lady is take her on as a client. And as heartbroken as she was at the reality of her situation, and as disappointed as I was, and I'm like, am I supposed? It was a gut check moment for me. It was like, did I miss that day of school? Like, am I built for this? Like, I thought I was supposed to be able to solve. I was supposed to be able to solve that problem.
Yeah,
and thank God that my fitness manager, my boss, was there for a mentoring moment and gave me permission to turn down business that wasn't meant for me. Because I totally could have sold her on the dream.
Of course.
Oh yeah, let's do 36 sessions and let's get to work and we'll start to figure that would have been the worst violation of integrity.
Nicely said.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Prepay for it all right now. We'll give you a discount. And after 36 sessions.
I mean, we were all up in her pain. She would have done anything in that moment to make that problem go away. But we weren't going to solve it.
Yeah, it speaks a lot to integrity. Yeah, I find that in a moment like that, where a physical problem cannot be solved by the solution that is traditional, it gets really difficult to tell someone the truth, right? Because in a way, the challenge was, I want the solution, willing to put in the work or not, but that solution would not fit. There's no way that solution would solve the problem. And yet the hard choice, the gap, to go back to that piece, is I've got to try a very alternative method.
Yeah.
And it sounds like she had tried an alternative method and needed to stay off the beaten path in so many ways. When you think back to
there's just one more stop in between that she needed to make before
that. Yeah, I can get that. When I think of a situation like that in the world of get out of your own way and what we're doing, that's often the difference between like a big mindset shift and just a choice. Like, it's an uncomfortable choice, but you just got to make a choice. And one of the most fascinating parts of human psychology that I've spent a lot of time digging into is the difference between process and choice. We just have to decide.
Okay.
And what I noticed is that we can gather all the information, we can do all the assessments, we can line it up on our board. And sometimes all it takes is a choice. We just have to make the choice. And then everything from that follows, but we often get paralyzed by the analysis of our options. Have you ever been stuck in that space of like, mindset, physicality, these things. And on the outside, it can look like, well, if we help people get to the next level, then we're immune to this. And I certainly am not. I'm wondering if you've ever found yourself in the spot where you have all the information or you're still hunting for information when really what's happening under the hood is it's just scary to drop a choice, to make the decision and go a way that is very different, which goes back to our gap conversation.
Yeah, man. So for those of you not familiar with my journey, I got kicked out of the Air Force Academy. And a lot of my decisions upon my exit were based on going and getting a degree that I wanted, playing football right away. I didn't want to sit out a year, and just moving on with my life, so to speak, as fast as possible. And then as I moved through what would become a 4-year valley in my life, the exit, the climb did not start again until I reconciled this desire to serve in the military. And that was the scariest shit ever. When I chose to submit my package for officer candidate school in the Marine Corps, I did not know whether or not they were going to deem me fit for service or not. And the reason that valley was 2 years longer than it could have been, I should say, is because I did not want to deal with the potential of them saying no. I wasn't ready. So I stayed the course. I chose not to deal with that potential outcome and just bury my head in the sand. And I became a better strength coach because of it, but I wasn't a happier, more fulfilled strength coach because of it. It wasn't until I rolled the dice, submitted the package, and surrendered to whatever the outcome was going to be. And thankfully, it worked out in my favor. I got to do the deal. I commissioned as an officer of Marines, and got to close that chapter of my life. And still, I stood in that pain for a really, really long time because I was just scared of being told no. I just had dinner with two of my buddies from my academy days the other night, and we were talking about, each other's perception of each other's success and what that looks like in the here and now, and how fucked up we were about, staying in, getting kicked out, getting out of the military early, and what each other looks like to ourselves, as in comparison to our own situations.
Yep.
And from the outside looking in, I look really successful. And at the same time, I'm looking at my other two buddies and I'm like, dude, I think you guys are killing it. And they're like, dude, there have been moments where I was dying on the inside to achieve what I've achieved. And we all had the same story. It was so funny. And it comes back to, something that one of my mentors told me just recently. I got caught in the gap, trying to figure some shit out and crying in my beer a little bit. And he was like, look, dude, you solved XYZ problems and the problem you're trying to solve is ABC, but there are people that have solved the ABC problem that would kill to have XYZ problem. And that's what we do in comparison. We don't want our problems. We want everybody else's problems, right. And in that trap, we're not solving our problems. And it's such a zero-sum game to be playing with yourself.
Man, I love this line. If this doesn't represent getting out of your own way, I don't know what does. I stood in that pain for a long time because I was scared to be told no. There's nothing more indicative.
Yeah, this is the story that I tell all the time. So it's my new favorite story to tell to drive this point home. So I ice bath every morning, and my kids are intrigued by it, and so make a promise, do hard things, make yourself proud. They're like, Dad, can we get in the ice bath? I'm like, not if you're not committed. No. And what I make them commit to isn't 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 90 seconds. No, you're going to get in, you're going to do 10 breaths, you're going to dunk, and you're going to get out. Okay, let's do it. Now remember, we're not dipping the toe. You're getting in and sitting down.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So my son, just full of, male 7-year-old energy, and jumps in and the 10th fastest breath ever, dunks his head, gets out, and he's like, woo! My daughter, who's 5, just as enamored. She's a bit more of a critical thinker and, processes things a little bit different than he does. And So she gets in and she kind of wades into the water, right? And can't get past her belly button. And now she's standing in this ice bath, paralyzed, right? And we're doing the work, and like, hey, babe, look me in the eyes. Like, here we go. Take a breath. Come with it. Sit down. I'm coaching her through it, right? And then she's good. She's good for like 2 seconds, and then no, and she gets all squirrely. And what could have been 10 breaths, a dunk, and I'm out. She stood in that ice bath for close to 10 minutes.
Oof. So much suffering.
Trying to figure it out before she, and I told her, I was like, look at me right now. Nobody's forcing you to be in here. You can get out. And she chose. She's actively making this decision. And I think this is really cool. This is a really cool moment for me as a dad to recognize like what's happening in our psychology, right? In that she's trying to reconcile with herself. Like, I'm supposed to do the thing, but not today. And nobody's forcing you. It's okay. You can get out. And in her mind, she's like, I'm supposed to do the thing. And I was like, finally, I just had to ask a different question. Are you ready to get out? And she said, yes. And she got out. Right. And like, that's the valley, man. You know, that's the paralysis. That's the paralysis of indecision. It's like, we just sit in that pain for so much longer when she could have just got out of the tub, or she could have sat down, did 10 breaths, dunked, and got out. Right. Either option is shorter than the pain that she was standing in.
Man, right? That's so good. That's so good. I find that as an athlete, the conditioning that I had to undergo, fully self-imposed, I will 100% own this, though I think coaches are a part of it, fully self-imposed, was that more suffering, more duration of hardship was good for me. Rather than, is this intentional? And you get kind of wrapped up as an athlete, like, well, if it hurts, it must be good for me. And I think to the share of your son and your daughter, their experiences being so different. Yeah, it's difficult, but it's intentional. It's an intentional 10 breaths and a dunk and then out versus a very unintentional, let's stand in here for as long as possible, even though we're not fully committed, we're not fully not committed. And look, I think that commitment word applies to so much more than big relationships, big business. It is like the day-to-day minutia that we avoid those commitments to. I love that, man. I stood in the pain for a long time because I was scared to be told no is so real. And whatever the word is, it doesn't mean I was scared to be told no. It could be I was scared to be rejected. I was scared to be a winner. I was scared to get hurt. I was scared to like do it like different than I've ever done it. It's just that fear that keeps us from making a move. And then we end up sitting in an ice bath for 10 minutes where we're just suffering pointlessly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
And when she's ready, we'll climb back in there and we'll do the work, and we'll figure it out. All I could do at the end of that was just tell her how proud I was of her, and and I had to give her that lesson. It's like, when you're ready to commit, we can do it again. But now you know what the consequence of lack of commitment is, and that's a big concept for a 5-year-old, but like in the context of this ice bath thing, like she gets it.
That's cool.
And it was really beautiful. That conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago in the coffee shop about imprinted moments, and the make or break of that imprint is whether you have a guide or a mentor on the other side of it to help you contextualize what the fuck just happened.
Right. Yeah, to help you make sense of it. Yeah. It's really cool to hear that she's learning that. I don't think I learned that until like 28, maybe 29, where I had some big life choices, probably again at 33, 34. And yeah, there is something about having someone on the other side of that moment that can help you reel it all in. If someone is listening and they're going through those moments, right? They find themselves in those hard defining spaces, or a season, a valley, as you described it. And they need someone to recontextualize it all. How do you get someone that's in the space? If we're meeting a listener right now in the space of their valley, what kind of message do you have for them? So they've raised their hand and say, hey, I need someone to help me recontextualize this. Because that is also, it's the same thing. I stood in the pain for so long because I was afraid that someone else might help me or might invest in me or whatever the belief is. How do you get someone to activate and say, I'm ready?
That's a big question, man. I default to simple. Once you recognize, because here's the thing. Most people are in a valley and don't even realize that they're there.
Ooh, amen.
So that's number one. So once you realize that you're in a valley, you can't look at the summit. It's too far away. And that journey just looks way too painful. It's too steep. It's too hard, and I was in that space. I'd rather just stay where I'm at and figure it out. Because where I'm already where I am. This is easier. Painful as it may be, it's easier. Yeah. And you got to default to simple. What's the next easiest step? Is it just simply raising my hand and asking for help? Is it just getting out of the ice bath to try again another day? Is it doing a Google search of gyms near me? Is it navigating my network of people who embody where I'm trying to go and figuring out, and just simply getting coffee with them and asking, what the hell are you doing that I'm not? And then taking the stuff that you can readily apply and making that your next easiest step. And then do that. That's so much more palatable than embarking on this 100-pound weight loss journey and not knowing the difference between ice cream and oatmeal. It's the journey, the finish line's too far away at that point.
It's a really good principle.
Right. So what's the next what's the next easiest step? That's the answer. That's the question that you need to answer.
Yeah, and only focusing on that step to me is what I'm really hearing you pronounce, is
that's it.
It's easy to look at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and say, well, I don't know step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can't take step 1. And really what I'm hearing is, hey, the next level begins with step 1. Just do step 1. Just get out of your own way. Take step 1. You're good. You're good. You're good. Breathe. And then you can figure out what the next step looks like.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like, I am all about reverse engineering the journey. You know what I mean? Like, this is where I want to go. I want to make $1 million. I want a 6-pack, or whatever. I get that. But we still got to take the first step.
Right.
And if we continue to take the wrong first step, because we're just in perpetual motion, which is how a lot of us is how a lot of us have found our way to success.
Yes.
And it is inefficient as shit to do it that way. So once you have your eye on the prize, you know where it is that you want to go. Okay, got it. Where am I now? And what is the next easiest step to move the needle in that direction?
So good.
And that is and you do that over and over and over and over again. You continue to make that promise. You continue to do that hard thing. You continue to make yourself proud, and on we go.
Dude, it's so funny listening to you, because we are clearly cut from the same exact piece of fabric. The weekend retreat that we just held, we put this model up on the board where many of us are afraid of the unknown. And the unknown is a you that we put in a circle. And the unknown represents everything that we want. It is the more that we're all chasing, right? I want more money. I want more time to myself. I want more equipment so I can train better. I want a trainer, but I've never had these things. So they're in the unknown. And the way that we model this is we draw a horizontal arrow, and then we draw a downward arrow to the words first step. And in this attempt to model the actual process of growth, I do agree that you need a where do you want to go? You need a long-term context to know if you're making the right steps or you're at least headed the same direction. If you want to go east, don't walk west. But then we draw from the first step, that word first step, we draw a line directly back to the you. Because after the first step, if you're truly embarking on a journey that you've never gone down before, after you take that first step, you are back at the same question. What now? What's the next first step? And that we call that the relationship with the unknown. And I think that if I really look back at my process, sounds like your process too, it came with a lot of mistakes and a lot of flaws. And while we were constantly taking first step, many of them were completely out of context. They didn't have any relevance to what we were doing. And we made that work versus it worked, right? We made it work. And I want to impress upon you, if you're tuned in right now and you are unsure of how to make your dream happen, if you're unclear on all of the steps, that you're actually in the right place. And that all this takes is a repetitive cycle of I'm in the unknown, take a first step. I'm in the unknown, take a first step. And the way that you describe that with, can I find the least amount of friction goes all the way back. Like the way this conversation is connecting is so interesting. It's the same as our non-negotiables, right? Can we reduce the friction on our non-negotiables and just make choices that align with a baby move towards what we want in the long run? And I think on the outside, it looks like, oh, these people have everything figured out. And I think on the inside, the person in it is like, yeah, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. And the brave ones say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Who's done this? The fearful ones say, I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I can move forward. But the courageous ones do both. And they find the help and they take the steps. And that is, to me, that's where real courage lies. And I'm going to find help and I'm going to go ahead and make my baby steps.
Yeah. Well, that's such an interesting point because it's the combination of the two. Because the help that you're looking for, well, if that's embodied in a who, not how, the help that you're looking for wants to see that you're at least doing something.
Yes.
Inefficient as it may be, are you standing in the water?
Right. Or have you moved?
Or have you at least sat down?
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, cool. Okay, that sucks, but at least we're moving in the right direction. I can help you. But if you just want to stand in your problem, nobody wants to get in that boat. So again, going back to what's the next easiest step? And that next easiest step is 100% predicated on the knowledge that you have at the time.
True. Very true.
Right.
I fully agree with that.
And what I found in the mentors that have poured into me is they are more interested in, are you taking the next, what you think to be the next easiest step? Are you doing that part? Because if you are, we can rock and roll and we can create efficiency.
Very true.
But if you lack that bias for action, if you're living in the problem and not the solution, I can't fuck with you.
Yeah. Yeah, you can only wait around so long before there's a choice. To go back to our comments earlier, you've got to make a choice. Yeah, my definition of a coach is someone that moves someone immobile. Our job in many ways is to take immobility and make it motion, whether that's towards a dream, towards fitness, towards health, towards a relationship, towards kindness, towards generosity.
Yeah.
Our job is to move people. So I really can appreciate that we're also, as a standard, as a non-negotiable, only going to help and come to the aid of individuals who are prepared to stand in their problem and make a choice to no longer stand in their problem. Like that to me is a definite shift in the last 5 years where I would probably have spent more time like, come on, you can do it. Come on, you can do it. Now it's like, hey, make a choice or I can't stand here with you. If you're willing to make a choice, I'll run with you, but I can't stand here with you.
And that's the thing. So we're not talking about moving miles at a time. I'm talking about inches.
Yes.
Right.
So good.
I will invest I will invest in your inches. I don't expect you to move miles. That comes later. We got to get you to move a couple inches at a time. And as long as that we're moving in a positive trajectory, if we're moving towards the solution, I can rock with you.
Yep.
But
love that.
Yeah, the pace, the magnitude of that progress is inconsequential to the progress itself.
Well said.
And that's why we say progress always. Because the magnitude, the timeline, it doesn't matter. Are you moving in that direction? Are you getting to where you want to go? Point blank, period.
It's simple.
And if you're doing the work, the answer should always be yes.
That's right. Have you had to have tough conversations with some of your closest peers about that?
Yeah. Shit, I got to have one today. And it's one of those things, man, where, people get caught in the ideal. Have you read the book, The Gap in the Gain?
Yes. Ben Hardy. If you don't know about it, buy that book. Same with Who Not How. Great books.
Really? Yeah. Really, really incredible books. But in The Gap in the Gain, they talk about living into the ideal and how toxic that is.
Yep.
And you can tell, by somebody's language pattern if they're trying to live into the ideal or not when they use words like should, could, would,
yep.
right? And they just beat themselves to death with these words because it's like, oh, I should be here by now. I should, if I could have done this, if I had done that. And, it's like, dude, like you're living in scarcity and regret. And that is not helping your situation.
Yep.
And people look at their progress, right? They're making inches, but they're not miles. So is it really working? And it's like, you don't have the capacity for miles. That's why you're only getting inches. Like, let's acknowledge where we are right now, and we're building that. We're putting tread on those tires. We're creating a more efficient engine. We're doing all the things. But dude, if we drop I don't know anything about cars, but if you drop a 450 in that hoopty, the wheels are going to explode.
Right.
And I probably just did a really amazing job at my lack of automobile acumen, but I think we all get it. Yep. You can't do that. So like, let's get all the things that are required, make them not inconvenient, and appreciate those inches.
Yeah.
Because you're not ready for miles.
So good, man. So good. Like the words that come to mind are incremental and iteration. Those two I words are the secret to it all.
Yeah.
Incremental and iteration. Can you iterate? Can you get a little better? Increment, small as possible on a repetitive basis. Like you got to commit to the long term. But if you do that, to me, that's what being limitless really is about. We talk about being limitless. And I think the social element of that is, well, just take these massive swings up. And to me, the limitless piece is based on the 1% rule. Can you just get 1% better? Now you're limitless because 1% better has a tremendous longevity. Whereas if you try to get 20% better, you almost will snap your longevity very, very fast.
Oh yeah. Quick, fast, and in a hurry. Yep.
Yeah. That is very visible in the gym and fitness, right? I saw guys that were like, okay, I went from benching 150 to 180. Okay, well, that's a big jump there. But then to go from 180 and expect to go to 250 with the same kind of program or plan, you are destined to get hurt and snap something.
Oh yeah.
It's just I think fitness can be a great example of that incremental piece. You want to build it over the long run.
It's the easiest way to burn out, man. One of the things that I had to learn, in my relationship with money was approaching everything from a relative standpoint, not an absolute standpoint.
Nice.
And when I came to that conclusion, I started moving money by percentage as opposed to fixed
nice
amounts.
So good.
that shift made money so much more palatable, less scarce, because I have what I have.
Yep.
And that's okay. It's not I don't have 500 this month. Fuck.
Right. My life is over.
It's 17% of what I got is 17% of what I got.
Yep.
And I can stick to that plan.
Beautiful.
And like that's a nuance that worked for me. That not saying that that's the gospel of finance that everybody should live by. Again, going back to principle, you got to spend. This principle is spend less than you make. Figure out how much you're willing to invest, save a little, and live on the rest. That's a principle. Now, how you apply that, that's according to the nuance and desires of your own life. And like that's a totally different conversation than, hitching your wagon to a guru that doesn't exemplify where you're trying to go.
Yeah. I love the relevance of that. I think that can apply to so many things. Can you do it as a percentage? You can almost boil anything down to a small increment and say, what's my improvement look like in this field? I think it's true for fitness. I love the application of money. I think it can be said about mindset. We're not looking to make dramatic alterations to the way you perform or the way you think about the world. We want to make small shifts. It's in everything. And to go back and connect this to a previous thread, this is all about simplicity. If you make it overly complicated, you're making it unlikely to be achieved. It is really a game at the core of it of being simple, and that takes a lot of sophistication. This is where I think help is important. If you get help, someone has ridden through the entire bell curve, the ups, the downs, the roller coasters, to be able to make something complicated very simple. But this is, man, you want as little friction as possible when you're saving money. You want as little friction as possible when you're doing these things. And I do recommend, Mycal mentioned The Gap and the Gain, great book. Who Not How as a theme came up. There's a book by the same author, Benjamin Hardy, that is available, Who Not How. His whole series of books can be really helpful if you're on the treadmill and feel like you're on the treadmill, I'd say. Let's work towards winding down with this question. What does it mean to get in your own way to you? And how do you snap yourself out of it if you're stuck in that loop?
Man, to get in your own way, I love the analogy of a feedback loop. And when you're lost in your own internal monologue and the feedback that you're continuing to get is negative, and that negativity is not moving you forward, that's the big part. Okay, because there's shit that we don't like. There's places we don't want to be. There's circumstances we don't want to be in that provide plenty of fuel to move us forward.
Yes.
So not all things negative are actually negative. So I want to make sure that I'm very, very clear about that. So as you're moving, as you're moving through that internal dialogue and you're just like, that negativity is making you more stuck, you're in your own way. How do you get out of that? Recognize, like, come to a place where, like, ooh, you have to decide, I don't want to be here anymore. That's the first and most important decision that you'll ever have to make about being in a shitty place, being in that negative feedback loop. That is the simplest, most important decision that you have to make, is making the declaration, making the promise.
Nice.
I don't want to be here anymore.
If you're out here in Scottsdale, if you're coming to one of our retreats, if you're coming to something that I'm doing out here in Scottsdale, you have got to make a point to visit the gym. You've got to make an appointment with Mycal or his team. I've been to the gym. It's an awesome space. It's very open. You can tell they get a lot of sweat out of you while you're there. Mycal, give us a little bit of insight as to where people can find you, where they can learn more about you, where the gym is. And then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you can tap into Next Level at our headquarters here in Scottsdale, Arizona. You can get a hold of us at Next Level online. You can find us on Instagram at nextlevel_PHX, the airport code for Phoenix. You can find me at Coach Derz, Derz, on Instagram. And I'd love to connect with you when you're ready to have that conversation, get out of your own way and talk fitness, healing, and mindset, because as we evolve, it's going to take all three. So yeah, you can hit up the website for inquiries, nextlevelpfc.com, and shoot me a DM. I'm ready to rock and roll with you.
It's awesome talking to you, man. We got connected by actually a Baltimore friend, because we got history being out on the East Coast together way, way, way back in the day. Ladies, gentlemen, Mycal Anders is not just the person that you can speak to about your journey, which is very clear in the way that he talks today, but he's a person that can change your journey. So I'd encourage you to lean in. He's very approachable by send him a DM. That's not a platitude. That is something I imagine is taken up very seldom. But if you're ready to make a change in your fitness, your health, give him a buzz. Check out the gym. Check out what he's about. He also posts, it seems regularly, because I get these daily Derz emails that are they're pretty fire. So sign up for his regular newsletter. Man, there's some nuggets of wisdom in that. Mycal, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, brother. Hey, man, I appreciate you having me. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and just always, always, always. I appreciate sharing time and space with you, brother. Thank you.
Progress always, right?
That's it. Progress always.
Check out the show notes. Lots of links in there. And we'll see you on the next one. Make sure you get out of your own way.